My name is Mireia Yurrita, and I'm a second-year PhD student at TU Delft. Today, I'm going to present our work, Disentangling Fairness Perceptions in Algorithmic Decision-Making, the Effects of Explanations, Human Oversight, and Contestability, which I wrote along with my co-authors, Tim Droz, Agathe Balayn, Dave Murray-Rust, Nava Tintarev, and Alessandro Bozzon. Algorithmic systems are increasingly being used in decision-making processes. Although some predict that these systems might revolutionize current workflows, many actors, including researchers, practitioners, or activists, have claimed issues of bias and discrimination. This has led to a surge of studies that aim at designing normatively fair algorithmic systems. However, even if these systems might meet certain fairness standards, decision subjects might still not perceive them as fair, which in turn jeopardizes their wider acceptance and adoption. This is why recent HCI studies have explored which elements affect decision subjects' fairness perceptions. These elements might include information cues, such as explanations, and system attributes such as human oversight and contestability. Our study follows prior research in studying the effect of explanations, human oversight, and contestability on decision subjects' fairness perceptions. However, and as opposed to previous research, we look into the entangled nature of explanations, human oversight, and contestability. These entanglements have been highlighted by the right to contest automated decisions, defined by Article 22.3 of the GDPR. From a methodological perspective, and as opposed to previous research, we capture fairness perception, not using, we don't use monodimensional approaches to capture those fairness perceptions, but rather go for faceted fairness perceptions, following decades of research in legal and organizational psychology for human decision-making. We therefore use these multidimensional approaches to capture fairness perceptions. So based on these contributions, our work is divided into three main research questions, for which we have formulated a total of 11 hypotheses. The hypotheses related to research question 1 look into the main and interaction effects of explanations, human oversight, and contestability in perceptions of informational and procedural fairness. So these hypotheses have been formulated drawing from literature, as mentioned, in legal and organizational psychology for human decision-making, and recent studies in fairness perceptions for algorithmic decision-making processes. H1B, the first hypothesis, says, or we formulate it in a way that we expect end users to perceive algorithmic decision-making processes as more informationally fair when they are accompanied by with explanations. H1B says end users perceive algorithmic decision-making processes as more procedurally fair when these processes are supplemented by human oversight rather than fully automated. In H1C, we hypothesize that end users' procedural fairness perceptions differ based on the contestation procedure of an algorithmic decision-making process. H1D expects the effect of contestability on end users' procedural fairness perceptions to be moderated by the presence of explanations. In H1E, we expect the effect of contestability on end users' procedural fairness perceptions to be moderated by the presence of human oversight. So from H1A to H1E, we have formulated hypotheses that look into the main and interaction effects of explanations, human oversight, and contestability. The hypothesis related to research question 2 look into the moderation effects, the interaction effects, potential interaction effects that task stakes might have on perceptions of informational fairness and procedural fairness. The effect, so in H2A, we expect the effect of explanations on end users' informational fairness perceptions to be moderated by the stakes of the task. In H2B, we expect the effect of human oversight on end users' procedural fairness perceptions to be moderated by the stakes of the task. And in H2C, we expect the effect of contestability on end users' procedural fairness perceptions to be moderated by the stakes of the task. Lastly, those hypotheses related to RQ3 look into the relation between faceted and overall fairness perceptions to compare our approach to previously used monodimensional approaches. So in H3A, we expect end users' informational fairness perceptions, to be positively associated with overall fairness perceptions. In H3B, we expect end users' procedural fairness perceptions to be positively associated with their overall fairness perceptions. And H3C, finally, looks into the interaction effect between informational and procedural fairness perceptions when predicting overall fairness. The methodology we use to answer or try to answer this hypothesis is divided into two main steps. The first step consisted of a preliminary study where we wanted to surface the interplay between explanations, human oversight, and contestability, so as to craft the experimental design for our main user study. The setting was a choice-based scenario for evaluating how understandable and actionable different explanations are and how they support contestability. These or the results of our preliminary study were used for step 2, that is to say, for crafting our main user study, where the aim was to test the hypothesis identified in literature. We used a between subjects design with 24 different groups and some open-ended questions. The context for this main user study was a loan approval process. You can find more details in our paper, of course. So in this main user study, there were different configurations, algorithmic configurations, based on whether there were explanations or not, whether there was human oversight or not involved in the algorithmic decision process, whether the decision subject was able to contest or not the algorithmic decision, and the type of contestation put in place. And these scenarios or the context also differed based on whether the loan was a high risk, a high stakes loan approval process or a low stakes loan approval process. So to sum up, we found that among the hypotheses related to RQ1, only the presence of explanations increased perceptions of informational fairness. We didn't find any evidence of human oversight leading to an increase in perceptions of procedural fairness. We did find that contestability increases perceptions of procedural fairness, but we did not find any moderation effects of explanations and human oversight. These two factors moderating the effect of contestability on perceptions of procedural fairness. When it comes to the hypothesis related to RQ2, in short, we could say that we did not find any evidence that the task stakes, that is to say, whether the loan approval process was a high stakes or a low stakes loan approval process, we did not find any evidence that the task stakes moderate the effect of explanations, human oversight, and contestability on perceptions of informational and procedural fairness. And to sum up, we found that an increase in perceptions of informational fairness leads to an increase in perceptions of overall fairness. An increase in perceptions of procedural fairness leads to an increase in perceptions of overall fairness, but we did not find any interaction effects between the two. From our qualitative findings analysis, we found three main tensions. A tension between those participants who were asking for more information about the algorithmic system and wanted to get detailed explanations on how that algorithmic system was designed and trained, and those who were just concerned about the difficulties in understanding more detailed explanations. A second tension between those participants who were asking for a higher degree of human involvement and those who would prioritize a speedy process over human involvement, and a tension between those participants who highlighted the positive effect of using algorithmic systems for getting rid of human biases, and those who wanted individual circumstances to be accounted for through a discussion with humans. So based on these findings, both quantitative and qualitative, in our discussion section, we summarize our findings, connect them to prior research, and draw implications and challenges of our results in three main topics. First, we discuss the need to leverage transparency beyond outcome explanations. We also highlight the need to design appropriate human AI configurations in view of the lack of effect of human oversight on fairness perceptions, but participants desire to have a higher degree of human involvement. And third, we also highlight the need to give effective voice to decision subjects for them to feel heard and suggest potential solutions like interactive contestations for enabling them to have influence over the outcomes. So in sum, in this paper, we have explored the main and interaction effects of examinations, human oversight, and contestability on decision subjects' fairness perceptions for high and low stakes algorithmic decisions. Our work therefore gives insights into how to design algorithmic decision-making processes that foster feelings of justice and addresses some of the HCI challenges that these systems have brought in. Hope you enjoyed the presentation, and you can find more information in our paper. Thank you very much.